This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter jet. A fifth-generation fighter, it does just about everything better than the Pentagon's current lineup, and it operates with stealth technology, making it harder to detect. The futuristic craft will come in versions for the Air Force, Marines, and Navy. One will have vertical takeoff capability, as you just saw. The big story for us in Northwest Florida is that the F-35 pilot and maintenance training will be done by the 33rd Fighter Wing Nomads at Eglin Air Force Base. Hello, I'm Lloyd Patterson. Welcome to CTC, Connecting the Community. The F-35, a jet that will change the forces of the air, will also have a big impact on the ground in our area. Let's talk about that with our guest, J.R. McDonald, Northwest Florida Vice President of the F-35 builder, Lockheed Martin. Wayne Harris is an Okaloosa County Commissioner from Crestview, heads the Crestview Chamber of Commerce, and is a 28-year veteran of the Air Force. And Okaloosa schools will also see an impact from the F-35. Jody Parker is the school liaison officer working at Eglin Air Force Base, and she's versed on the unique educational challenges facing students with fluid military students. I might also say that the fellows on this panel here are also longtime military members and know a lot about the moving and what's involved in military life. Thank you for joining us on this panel. F-35, J.R. McDonald, how big a deal is this to this area?
Well, it's a huge deal for the area. It's a huge deal for the United States. It's a huge deal for our allies. The F-35 program will be the largest Department of Defense program. The United States Department of Defense is planning on purchasing 2,443 of these airplanes. Allies around the world will be buying these airplanes, and all of the training for our maintainers and a lot of the pilot training will happen right here in Okaloosa County at Eglin Air Force Base. So it's a very big deal for the area.
Wayne Harris?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, he stole my huge, but I'm going to say it's massive. $350 to $400 million worth of economic impact to the community. Equates to about 3,500 jobs. About 4,000 people come into the community.
Okay, $350 million over a period of time?
Over a period of time, over the entire period, about 2016, I think, something like that. But that's huge. I mean, to use his words, you know, that's an impact that you just can't get every day, and we're very fortunate and very blessed in Okaloosa County and the surrounding areas to have that kind of economic impact to our community. It's
sort of the equivalent of a large company setting up.
Well, but more than a large company, I'd have to equate it to probably a car manufacturing or something like that because of the numbers that we're talking about. Not many businesses have 3,000 or 4,000 employees. I mean, that would impact 3,000 or 4,000 employees in the community.
Okay, and of course, where there's military, there are military families, and that means children too. And that means a lot of kids will be coming into Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, and Walton County schools. Jody, is this something that you look forward to, or is it going to really be it's going to be tough to handle all this?
Well, it's nothing unique to Okaloosa County or Eglin Air Force Base. There are lots of families always moving to the area. We look forward to the children. We want to welcome them. We have lots of programs in place to make it easier for the transition of military children. It's very difficult on those military children moving into the area. There will be some international students as well. That's going to be difficult on them, but we're looking forward to the challenge, and the surrounding communities and county districts are very welcoming to military children.
And our other guests also have experience being of military families too, and I'll come back and ask you that because I think it's an interesting aspect of life here in Northwest Florida that we have so many military families and their children come and go from the schools all the time, as you fellows well know. But about the F-35, and it could be coming any day now, is that correct, JR?
That's correct. The two airplanes that are going to be the first to deliver, we call those Air Force number 8 and Air Force number 9, are ready and waiting at our plant in Fort Worth where they're manufactured. And everything that we can do to get them ready to show up here has been accomplished. We're now waiting for the government to finish the final paperwork, if you will, that will allow those airplanes to ferry here to Eglin. So we're within days, maybe weeks at the outside of getting that final paperwork finished and those airplanes showing up here.
It's a beautiful jet. Is it just an accident that looks sort of like the F-18, or is that just the...
It actually looks closer to an F-22, which is the other airplane we build, and the reason for that is it's a stealth airplane, and there are some characteristics of what the shape of the airplane needs to be stealthy that make it look very similar to an F-22.
An F-35 comes into town. I've heard before that when an admiral locates to an area, you're talking about a staff of, say, 200 to 300 officers that are going to come along with an admiral. That's why it's a big deal to have an admiral in your area. When an F-35, a single, comes in, how many pilots does that take into account, and how many maintenance people then come along as part of that deal? Because these things must require a good deal of maintenance, and you've got to have people who really know what they're doing to work on these jets.
Well, the numbers of people to maintain the airplane is actually fewer than legacy airplanes.
Legacy being?
Legacy being anything that's not a fifth generation, a stealth fighter, things that we've invested quite a bit of money on the affordability aspects of it, so it doesn't cost as much to maintain it. But there will be people, obviously, with each airplane that show up to maintain it. And the thing to remember is that while we have airplanes here to train pilots, we're also training maintainers. And the number of maintainers we bring in isn't necessarily tied to the number of airplanes, because it will be the schoolhouse for every maintainer who works on the F-35. So we'll have almost 2,000 maintenance students going through the Eglin Integrated Training Center to learn how to maintain the airplane from around the world on a year-by-year basis. So not necessarily tied to how many airplanes are here, but we're going to have lots of people going through the schoolhouse to learn how to maintain it.
Because the air forces of other countries are partners, or they're buying into the F-35 as well.
That's right, and not just air forces. You have to remember that the Eglin facility, the 33rd, is the integrated training center where they'll be training Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps pilots and maintainers, as well as maintainers from around the world. So it's a joint, not just Air Force effort going on at Eglin right now.
But I mean, there'll be Spanish-speaking people coming in, people from other countries coming in to learn as well.
Right, we've got 8 partner nations that are part of the F-35 program, and as each of those partners and then other countries from around the world who aren't part of the first group decide that they want to buy the F-35, they'll make individual country decisions about how they want to conduct their pilot training and their maintainer training coming through Eglin. So we don't know what the details are for sure, but there will be countries from around the world that will send representatives to learn how to fly or to maintain the airplane to Eglin.
Jody, I want to ask you something about the international students in just a moment, but Wayne Harris, when you have so many people coming in, as are going to be with Navy, Marines, all the maintainers that he's talking about coming in, they get a taste of Northwest Florida. A lot of them, it seems like it's happened with the Navy and the Naval Air Station here, a lot of them seem to wind up coming back here and making this their home.
Why would you not? This is paradise. And contrary to what other people tell you about other parts of Florida, I've traveled the world, as I'm sure JR has and Jody has. This is an absolutely glorious place. The best beaches in the world, the best weather, no snow. Did I emphasize that there's no snow and ice? And it's a great place. You know, the people are very, very friendly in Northwest Florida. The schools are great in Northwest Florida. Cost of living, comparatively speaking to other parts of Florida, is phenomenal. I think we have paradise here in a lot of respects. Again, I retired intentionally. I chose to live here, and so do a lot of my friends.
Are there any studies done on how many people who come through the various military installations here wind up coming back, maybe 1 out of 10?
I don't have any of those studies. I just tell you that a lot of the folks that I live around and live around me were stationed here, and they chose to stay here intentionally.
Jody Parker, you're talking about international students coming in. How does the district handle that? What do you do with someone who comes into the school district? They don't even speak the language.
Well, the school district welcomes them with open arms. It is a unique opportunity for the international student to learn the American culture, the American education system, but it's also a unique opportunity for Americans to experience part of another culture coming in. We've already had a few international students in some of the schools in Okaloosa County, and they've welcomed them. The students are doing great. The only issues that come up is sometimes language, and Eglin Air Force Base has translators that we kind of reach out to, and they work with the school district to allow that communication to happen. It is a wonderful experience.
Now, Wayne and JR, you both have some insight into this because you have been in the Air Force for so long, but what kind of problems do kids of military personnel, what kind of problems that are unique to them that they bring when they come into a school district?
Well, the first uniqueness is the transitioning. They first have to come to a location that they're not familiar with. They have to make friends with individuals who have lived together for 20 years, that they know grandparents, great-grandparents, the families know each other. So that's the first burden that they have to encounter. Not only that, with the transition, there's deployments. Deployments happen, and the children go through a lot of anxiety and stress during these deployments. Sometimes their parents are in harm's way, so they're worried about what's going to happen. Sometimes there's added responsibilities that now this child has to take on to assist with the parent that's left behind. It's different. It depends on how the parents accept the stressors. It's passed on to the child as well. So some children take it on with open arms and they do extremely well, and other children just need a lot of support.
If you just joined us, we're talking about the basing of the F-35 and all the training. The pilots are going to be coming through Eglin Air Force Base, not just Air Force, but Marine and Navy pilots, and then pilots from the other parts of the world whose countries have purchased F-35s. And so you have that angle, and we're talking about that with Wayne Harris, the county commissioner, and J.R. McDonald with Lockheed Martin. But this is also a human story too, because these planes don't fly themselves. You have a lot of people coming in, and these people have families, they have kids that have to be brought into the school system. How did that? It seems to me that'd be kind of a tough life.
Oh, actually, it's a great life. I mean, I can speak from my own family experience, and my wife, whose father was also a retired military, 26 years, and we look forward to it. All my kids, the entire process, we look forward to moving every 3 or 4 years just to be able to experience that kind of environment. I mean, you get to change the way you do things every 3 years. You get to look at a different part of the world every 3 years, a different culture, a different group of people. My kids, I believe, they travel the world. In fact, my son, his girlfriend is from Norway only because of the years he spent in Europe, the many years we spent in Europe. He travels there regularly, and it allows them to be citizens of the world, if you will. My kids have a different perspective. What I say, and I've said this for years, is the legacy. I may not have left them a lot of money, but the legacy that I leave them is that my kids know about people of the rest of the world, and they learn how to get along with those folks in many different cultures.
Yeah, and yet you hear people say that some people who grew up in military homes say, it was terrible. We had to move every 2 years. It was awful. I have all these problems today because I'm a military kid. JR?
Well, I guess I'm part of the experiment we're talking about, because I moved here to Okaloosa County and attended Choctaw High School. I'm a graduate of class of 1981, and I showed up my sophomore year coming from Europe into the area, and the school system and the community welcomed us with open arms. I was very excited to come here. I mean, as Wayne said, why wouldn't I be? I've got the world's best place to live, the beach. And I think the people coming in for F-35 are going to look at it the same way. It's a great place to come. The county and the area is uniquely positioned to accept these new people. If you remember, the reason that F-35 is here in the first place was the 2005 Base Realignment and Closure Committee law that said that they're going to come here. The same time they did that, they invited, by law, the 7 Special Forces group to come. So since 2005, the county has been preparing this transition plan for the 2,000 to 3,000 F-35 people that are coming, as well as the 2,500 soldiers of the 7 Special Forces Group. So the F-35 families won't be going through this alone. The Army will have a large contingent. And in my conversations with Alexis Tibbetts, the superintendent of schools, they have done an awful lot of work to be ready and to welcome these new people with open arms. So I think it's going to be a very easy transition.
Jody Parker?
Yes, I totally agree, and a lot of the work that the community has done is they've started programs, junior student-to-student programs and student-to-student programs in the high schools and the middle schools to welcome the children into those schools, the transitioning children, to get them brought in by other children so that they're welcomed into the community as well. And as both these gentlemen said, what a beautiful place to live, and this is one of the best school districts there is for children to come to.
Does that play any factor in the decision to move the F-35 training here? Was the overall environment in Northwest Florida? I mean, it could be, they could be put in Minot, North Dakota, couldn't they?
Well, no, I think, I hope not, I was stationed there. I'll just tell you quite honestly that I think because of the, and I've said this since I've been here, this is probably one of the most purple-suited facilities I've ever seen. Purple-suited meaning all the military are represented here in some capacity. And because of the weather, because of the flight patterns that we have, because of the airspace that we have, and because of the 724 square miles of land mass, as well as the hundreds of thousands of square miles of water or airspace over the water, this is the perfect location. And the weather is also an issue, and JR can better address that. But you know, one of the things that the county did is put together different plans. Jody mentioned the plans. We have, and still ongoing, is the joint land use, where we brought in all the different communities with a myriad of ideas to help us understand the joint land use between the military and the civilian. We also did a growth management plan, which I chaired on the executive committee for how this is going to affect, what areas are going to be affected: Santa Rosa, Walton County, Crestview, the south part of the county, and then we just formed, with all these other committees together, we formed a military sustainability. It's nice to have all these plans for now, but you got to have a plan for the future, and it's basically the military sustainability is the strategic plan ongoing for what's going to happen to us with this growth.
That's kind of talking about a big picture of growth, but on an individual basis, you deal with the families, the first graders, the fifth graders who are coming in here from another part of the country, and they have to, I think it's so neat that there's a program set up that so they don't come into the school not knowing anybody and feeling like, oh, here I am, a stranger again. That's really tough on kids, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's hard for them to transition in, but with these programs and with the welcoming community and the great schools here in Okaloosa County, you really can't ask for a better place to be, and I think these children are going to be, it's going to be a great educational experience for them.
Okay, talking about the F-35 being based at Eglin Air Force Base in Okaloosa County, it's going to be a very, very big thing in Northwest Florida for the decades ahead. And we saw a moment ago, one of the versions of the F-35 is the, I guess I call it the Harrier-style vertical takeoff plane. Didn't they have a lot of trouble with that style and previous jets?
Well, the Harrier is the jet everybody is familiar with that does the vertical takeoff and landing. Our version of that is the F-35B, that we call it the Stovall model, the short takeoff vertical landing. For the United States forces, that's intended for the Marine Corps. And it is truly remarkable to watch this airplane transition from flight as you normally see an airplane fly to transition to the Stovall mode and come and land. We've got an awful lot of testing that's already gone on with our B models. Matter of fact, we've done almost 500 of those vertical landings already with our test assets, which are now at Pax River in Maryland. And we're very, very comfortable with the design, and the feedback that we're getting from the pilots is that it's significantly easier to fly this version of a vertical takeoff airplane than the former Harrier version, which took a lot of dexterity with your hands to try and figure out exactly how to keep that stable on land. This airplane, a lot of fly-by-wire capability. You're making inputs to the airplane, and the computers are helping you quite a bit with the vertical takeoff aspect.
Okay, fly-by-wire meaning?
Meaning that you've got computers that are helping you when you make an input to a flight control. You're not just moving a flight surface, you're making an input to a flight computer that's looking at all aspects of flight and helping you determine the best way to control the airplane for what you've asked for.
What kind of things is Okaloosa doing to roll out the red carpet for the F-35? It's probably well rolled out now, but is there anything special that's coming up?
Not because of the length of times or the periods of time that it's going to be, they're transitioning, if you will, and JR can address this, but I think most of the information, most of the things through organizations like Job Plus, Chambers of Commerce, Economic Development Councils, and just everyday people, because understand that's a predominantly military community over there, and they're used to this kind of environment, and just the people alone will roll out a lot of their own personal welcomes to the area, much like they have the 7 Special Forces that are really in time big now. But as the Joint Strike Fighter comes in, you'll see more and more activities from the Chambers of Commerce. They'll do military appreciation days. You'll have different organizations doing things like that. In fact, we just had a recent we have a committee that's part of our chamber. That's the Military Appreciation Committee that did a day 2 weeks ago on Saturday, and we had some folks coming there. And again, once they start really rolling in here, you'll see more and more activities from the local communities doing things like this.
We're watching an F-35 take off right now. Is the sound a problem, the noise takeoff?
Well, the airplane is a jet, and it makes noise like a jet airplane makes. Unfortunately, the early press indicated that it was significantly louder than everything else that's out there. We've done the most extensive noise testing on this airplane that's ever been done for any fighter, and we've decided after all that testing that the airplane is loud like a jet, but it's not louder appreciably than any of the other jets you'll see flying around here. If you recall that Eglin Air Force Base, the 33rd Fighter Wing, which I was a member of, we flew F-15s, and there were 72 F-15s out there, and they've all gone away since September of 2009, and for the last 2 years, it's been very, very quiet out at the base. Now, the good news for F-35 is that we're not bringing 59 airplanes in there tomorrow. We'll do a slow buildup of them. So at first, it'll be, hey, wait a minute, we're hearing jets out there again. But I think that people will quickly realize that it's not appreciably louder than the jets that were there before, and that the military the Military Department of Defense has done a great job of doing the economic impact studies to determine where the noise is going to affect people, and then the base and the wing will put procedures in effect to mitigate the noise in those places that they're worried about.
Yeah, and like you say, if you live next to an Air Force base or in a county with an Air Force base, they're going to hear some noise. Jody, do you hear that sound? Does it wake you up, or?
It's the sound of freedom. We love
Amen.
it.
Wayne?
Well, I'll just tell you that we're in the process of doing a sound study now in areas that can be abated or mitigated, and things that the county has in fact just offered that contract recently. I'll echo Jody's terms. It's the sound of freedom. I grew up basically in the military, and the one base that I lived at for a number of years was a base in Colorado, Lowry Air Force Base, and there were no airplanes. And I'll have to tell you, there's withdrawal when you don't hear the sound of a jet or a C-130 prop or any one of the other ones. I personally think that, personal opinion, not the county's, the noise issue was much to do about nothing.
Okay.
I'd love to hear jets. After a while, it's like when you live next to a railroad train, you don't hear it after a while. In fact, when you don't hear it is when you have concerns, my personal opinion.
Northwest Florida is better off than other parts of the state as far as unemployment goes, but here in Escambia and other counties, it's higher than most people would like. The picture the impact that the F-35 will have on civilian employment, how do you see that playing out? Okay. Who's going to benefit there?
Can I address that? I'll take my other hat on, put my other hat on, and that's from the Chamber of Commerce perspective in the Crestview area. The growth management plan predicts about 65 to 70% of the folks that are going to be moving in here from both the services, the Army and then from the Joint Strike Fighter, will be living in the Crestview area. And I'm speaking strictly as the Chamber of Commerce director. I've seen a significant uptick in businesses looking to be in our area. We've got some things running at our Bob Sykes Airport. I've got a lot of commercial folks talking about some malls and doing some things, some stores and restaurants and things that we're not privileged to before, but we now are getting. And that's all because of this impact. And the whole impact it's hundreds of millions of dollars over a period of years, but some of that impact is because of commercial endeavors and restaurants and retail endeavors and things like that. It's going to be, I think it's going to be, I've already seen it. I get probably a visit once a week. I've had a number of developers, if you will, and I'm talking about large. The most current one I spoke with has 6.5 million square feet. Him alone in his company has 6.5 million square feet of retail and restaurant space that he's developed and place, and they're already looking seriously in the Crestview area.
Wow.
Significant impacts.
Very interesting. Lockheed Martin going to be in a hiring mode when the F-35 arrives in numbers?
Well, as you could guess, it takes a little bit of preparation to be ready for the airplane when it gets here. So we've been in a hiring mode. We have almost 300 Lockheed Martin contractors assigned to Eglin Air Force Base to team with the 33rd Fighter Wing in making sure that the F-35 is successful here. The jobs impact, when we talked about the numbers that Wayne said about the amount of money that shows up in the county, most economists will say that that's a number you start with, and then there's a multiplication factor. So for every $1 million that the Department of Defense brings in a program, there's an additive or multiplicative effect of about 3 to 5 times that you see an economic impact in the community. If you expand the aperture a little bit, the total number of jobs in Florida is about 8,700 people that work directly on the F-35. That's about $800 million worth of impact work that happens in the state of Florida, and then you apply the multiplier. It's a big deal, not just for the county, but for the state.
Jody, you see any impact from your point of view?
Yeah, with the school district, it's going to depend on when the kids get here, because it depends on class size amendment in order for them to hire teachers and the need for those teachers. So I can see a possible hiring increase depending on the number of children that are coming in and which schools that they're going to attend.
Yeah, there could be some teachers out there looking for positions with the economy being what it is and the state budget being what it is. Well, we're right down at the end of the program. Before we go, though, very quickly, what have we not covered about? What do people need to know about the F-35 coming here that we haven't talked about?
Well, I just think it's important to say that Lockheed Martin couldn't be prouder to be teamed with the people and the officers and men of the 33rd Fighter Wing as we bring the airplane there. We've been working with them day in and day out since the wing stood up on the 1st of October 2009, and as you can imagine, they sent their best and their brightest, and we feel very privileged to be working with them. We're excited for the opportunity.
Very quickly, Jody, what do we need to cover?
That basically, we just want to say Eglin this is a great place where it's awesome to be in this county, in the welcoming county, and we welcome all the children with open arms, and we can't wait till they get here.
Wayne Harris?
Well, I think the 21st century technology, because I'm used to the 5th, 6th, 10th generations. We got airplanes flying around when I was a young airman that were flying around when I was a young airman, and I'm looking forward to that technology. I'm looking forward to quite honestly, the economic impact to our county. You mentioned the high unemployment, but you also got to mention that this increases our tax base, and it increases just about everything. Yeah. And it's really our stimulus, but it's a serious stimulus.
So we say thank you, Wayne Harris. Thank you, J.R. McDonald with Lockheed, and of course, Jody Parker with Eglin. Thank you very much, and welcome the F-35 to Northwest Florida. Thank you for watching. Good day.